were perplexed this morning when the news came from the FCC that they were in favor of the deal. Generally, we hear from the DOJ first, and the FCC follows. We assume that the FCC and the DOJ were on the same page because they almost always are. It never happens that the two agencies split on a deal like this. And so the news this afternoon is really perplexing. We don't know whether it means the DOJ is going to ask for concessions over and above what the parties have negotiated with the FCC, or whether they're really going to try and oppose this deal. But if they try and oppose it with the expert agency having given it the deal they're blessing, it's going to be a tough fight in the courts.
So you've never seen the DOJ and the FCC disagree like this?
I've only been covering the sector 18 years. In those 18 years, I've never seen it happen. It might have happened before then, but this is really unusual.
So what does an investor do? I mean, yes, the stocks are still up. Do you buy on prospects that the FCC's backing will be good enough for the deal to go through?
So you can buy T-Mobile because T-Mobile's in a great position whether this deal goes through or not. Sprint is much, much more precarious. Sprint, if the deal goes through, we think it's worth $10. If the deal doesn't go through, it may well file for bankruptcy. So that's a nerve-wracking name to try and play with the state of affairs being what they are today.
If it goes through, what does it mean for AT&T and Verizon?
I think it's bad for AT&T and Verizon. I actually think the FCC reached the right conclusion that this deal being approved is actually good for consumers. And it's good for consumers because T-Mobile is going to be incredibly competitive with all the extra assets they get from this deal, which ultimately is going to be bad for AT&T and Verizon.
What about Dish? You've got sort of an against-the-grain take on this one.
Yeah, so it cuts both ways for Dish. If the deal's blocked, T-Mobile probably needs to do a deal with Dish, and they need to do it quickly. If the deal goes through, T-Mobile's obviously off the table as a partner for Dish, but it increases the pressure on Verizon and AT&T to do something with Dish. So from my perspective, pushes out the timeline on Dish getting a deal done, but doesn't take away the prospect of a deal at all. And I think in a scenario where it's Verizon and AT&T doing a deal with Dish, Dish's spectrum is probably going to get a higher value than if it was T-Mobile.
So Jonathan, just sum it up, which is the top pick of all these ones we've just mentioned with where they are at the moment?
Amongst the group, I think the one name you can really play with confidence is T-Mobile because they're in a good position whether this deal goes through or not.